Hi, it's 6:30 on Tuesday night, so it's time again for what we're reading. I'm very excited to have two young men with me tonight because they're great readers and they're also new to KDL. They've started working at the Amy Van Andel Library with me. Matt is that way and Jason is that way. Let's start with Matt. Matt, how did you come to be at KDL?
Yeah, I moved out of state about 2017 with the intention of getting my master's in library science. Happened to be at the University of Nebraska, where there is not one. At that point, I knew I wanted to be a librarian, and I knew I was going to come back and work for KDL, which I did do in 2021. Uh,
Because KDL is so awesome. And yes, for haters out there, most librarians do have master's degrees,
yep.
including this one.
Mhm.
So, Matt, your first job with KDL was not at Amy Van Andel Branch, though I was wrong. Where were you to start?
I started as an intern actually this summer at Alpine and Tyrone. I
Oh,
really was just trying
yay.
to find a way in, and actually, Tyrone was the branch that I went to when I was a kid because I went to Kid
Did
City High
you?
School.
Oh, that's the best stories.
Cool. Yeah.
Did you go to story time at Tyrone?
Very rarely. I actually did middle and high school at Tyrone, so
Oh.
by that point I was kind of done. So
And Jason, what brings you to libraries in KDL
Uh,
specifically?
yeah, I went to Wayne State and I graduated this August. I got my master's degree in the 2 years of quarantine and everything being closed because of COVID. And I didn't have library experience, but I had other experiences that led me to want to just be a part of a significant institution that like serves the community in meaningful ways. And all my past experience just pointed me towards libraries. And KDL in our area has the most options, and it's just a really well-run organization. So I started subbing there to get some experience while I was finishing up school, and landed at the Amy Van Andel Library.
The brand new
The
library in
brand
Ana.
new one, which like I feel a little spoiled because it's been open less than 6 months and it's all state of the art and gorgeous,
beautiful.
and they're not all quite that aesthetically like modern and new
They
and
each have
shiny.
their own charm.
They do, absolutely, and that's the fun thing about libraries. You go into a new library and it's like a new place to explore. So
Yeah. So you are going to be exploring because you just got a promotion to teen
yes,
librarian at the Wyoming branch.
yeah. So
So
next
tell
week,
us about working with teens.
yeah, I'm gonna be hanging out with teens and doing fun. We're gonna do this teen zone programming on Wednesdays where the kids can drop in and play games and then do snacks. Hopefully, steer folks the direction of some good books. I love YA books myself. I love a little bit of everything. So that's helpful, I think, for being a librarian. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to being over there. My wife teaches in that community, and my kids have went to school in that community, so kind of feel. And I did my training in Wyoming, so it kind of feels
Oh, yay.
like full
Going
circle.
home.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
We'll miss you.
Well,
yeah. I'll miss y'all too.
I'm so excited as someone who's been with KDL since 1999 that young people are still attracted to the profession, still coming in. We always have great, innovative people working at KDL. We change all the time with the times as to what the library is for the community, what the community needs from its library changes. So, and we bring in great new people like Jason and Matt to help us figure out new directions and give us new ideas. So glad to have you both. It's been fun working with you, Jason, at the Amy Van
Mhm.
Andel branch, and Matt is still there. So I'm going to start with Matt because we have to stop all this chit chat because this is my show and I'm going to ask my question. Matt, what are you reading?
Yeah, so right now I have just finished The Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, which I left at work, so Penny is going to show for me. This is the second book in Brandon Sanderson's probably most well-known and most popular series called the Stormlight Archive, which is currently comprised of four books, the most recent of which came out last year and is called The Rhythm of War. And
Now I'm going to interrupt you, Matt, just to
yeah,
show everybody what this looks like
Yeah.
from the side.
this is a 1,000-page book.
Yeah, that's a
These are
serious book.
4,000-page books that are currently extant, and the other 6 planned will probably be that long as well, or longer.
Wow.
So this is a meaty fantasy series for sure.
Okay, so many pages. Is this world building? Does this okay? Tell
Yep,
us about the
that's the whole
world.
thing. Yeah, so Brandon Sanderson is known for being somebody who crafts really intricate worlds that are shaped by and that shape various magic systems. So one of our other core books, Mistborn, is part of a 6 current book series, much smaller than these, which is going to be another 4 or 6 books probably. And that book is about a magic system where people use various metals to do things like push metal or pull metal, or use metal to influence people with emotional, make them think about a certain thing or whatever. This series is set in a world that is defined by this big hurricane level storm that happens with regularity, like the weather, called a high storm, which has so influenced the geography and the like ecology of this world, in such ways that all towns are built under like big shelves of rock so that they can survive the winds, and plants like live under the ground most of the time, and they only kind of pop up when it's safe, and then they retreat back in when the high storm is going to come.
Hmm.
Is that part of the attraction? I mean, seeing something completely different and alien to you and feeling like you're going to a different world.
It's super weird. One of the things that you have to do when you read a big world building fantasy series like this is get through the first, like, all the fantasy names and the places and these sorts of concepts that they really have to kind of give to you, so that you understand it. But yeah, it's really exciting to try to see how these people are shaped by this ecological disaster that happens to them, with regularity. Also, there's enormous like building sized crabs and people with like
Building
magic.
sized crabs?
Yeah, they're like these big monsters that
Like
roam
with
around and eat
pincers?
people. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh, uh-huh. And people with big magic swords and big magic armor that makes them like superhumanly like crazy
Well,
unbeatable strong.
you would need them against the big crabs, right?
Yep. And so we just kind of have a couple characters who are finding their way in this world, and like through them we're learning about what makes the world cool and special. And Brandon Sanderson has, both with the Stormlight Archive and Mistborn and some of his other books, has kind of drawn them all into a universe like kind of Marvel Avengers style crossover that where all
Oh,
of the books are part of his big Cosmere series, which
okay.
they're all tangentially related to each other. So sometimes you'll get like some references between the books. And I think as the books go on, as he continues writing them, we're going to see more and more like overt kind of crossovers. But it's really interesting to see this kind of hints of a big plot that are sprinkled in that you can read separately in these very separate series.
Yeah. So now he's been around a long time,
Mm-hmm.
because I think back in 1999 when I started at KDL, I was shelving Brandon Sanderson books in our young adult department. Back then,
Yeah.
it's now called the teen department.
I
How old
think
is he? Do you know?
I think he is 45, and actually he was from Lincoln, Nebraska, where I did my master's degree.
Oh,
He
wow.
lived there for a long time until he moved to Utah to teach at Brigham Young. But he has been writing for a long time, and I think he's currently regarded as like one of the fantasy guys right now, or one of the fantasy authors, irrespective of gender. And I think actually 1999 is the right year. I think that might be the year that Mistborn came out. I'm gonna try to look at his bibliography here, but yeah, he's been writing, and he is very well known for writing super consistently. He puts a book out like once every year, or every 2 years. I mean, his whole deal is Stephen King style, like write every day, and he puts out very high quality work. His first book came out in 2005, so not that.
So I must have only been shelving it since it feels like since 99.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because he writes a lot.
he writes a lot.
One other question about, because I'm a librarian and you guys are going to be asked this more if you've probably already been asked, I'm going to get parents, dads and moms who say, is this appropriate for my 13-year-old to read?
Good question. I think Brandon Sanderson as a fantasy author is probably one of the best as far as content goes. He is a very well-known and outspoken practicing Mormon, so he has a lot of um, personal credit and personal stake in making sure that he writes a book that I think he believes in terms of his like values, his moral values. So as far as like sex, drugs, there's not any of that really. The books can be pretty violent. There are depictions of people like having body parts cut off or like people being, run through with a sword or these sorts of things. So
So
if
not
you're
for the squeamish.
not for
Yeah.
the squeamish, but not really gory either. That's kind of
Okay.
yeah, they're definitely written. This series is written for adults, like no questions. It's long. There's
And
lots
we
of
have it in the
description.
adult department.
Right. He does write YA, some YA series, which we probably also do have. He's got the Reckoners series. He's got Steelheart,
Yep.
Warbreaker. No,
I saw
Warbreaker isn't it.
Steelheart at Indie
Skyward. Yeah,
Container.
he's got a bunch. He's got a bunch of young adult works as well. So I would say probably a good place to start is some of his young stuff, and then that really helps bridge to more mature adult fantasy things. But everything pretty appropriate.
Excellent. Great information. I have seen Brandon Sanderson's book, and I will be honest with you, my son has read Brandon Sanderson, and I've never picked him up. And I picked him out for a core book. If you don't know, KDL Core is our 100 favorite adult books, and Brandon Sanderson made the list, and I need to read him. Would you
But
recommend that I, as an adult, start with Mistborn or something else?
if you were going to read a Brandon Sanderson first, I would say Mistborn: The Final Empire is his first one. It is our core book. And that's the first one of his that I read, and I loved it so much that I read through the other 5 Mistborn books. I'm eagerly awaiting those, and I'm like reading through his bibliography at this point. So
Okay, I'm gonna have to. Everybody pick up Mistborn, but let me get mine first.
Yeah.
Moving over to Jason.
Hey.
Jason, what are you reading?
Okay, I am currently reading. Let's see, The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulay.
Yes.
It's in our teen section, and it's more of a realistic fiction than the fantasy, but it is a story about a woman who has just graduated from high school and she got into med school at U of M Ann Arbor. She is a citizen of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and grew up as a part of a Native American family in a Native American community. Her father was Native American, her mother was not, and there was some scandal around that in the story. But Donis is our main character, and she is really brilliant and decides to put off going to U of M to medical school for a year to stay at home to help care for her grandmother who had a stroke. Really strong family values demonstrated by that character. And during this whole process of finding a spot at home, she gets kind of wrangled into helping solve a string of drug-related deaths that are happening in the community. They're happening on the reservations of the Sioux tribe. Um, it's it's this really cool it's one of those books that you don't want to read it too fast because it's written so well. I feel like I'm not just trying to get to the plot point. Like I'm learning about the culture of the tribe. I'm learning about the community, and being from Michigan, I have memories of going to the Sioux Locks, and I had a memory of my dad getting per cap payments from the casinos because he's an enrolled member of the tribe, and which made me remember that I'm an enrolled member of that tribe. Which it feels very strange to read about this culture that's very far away that I'm tangentially connected to. That's a part of my heritage, part of our history. And so while all that wonderfulness is happening of this rich cultural storytelling, telling the ways of those of the people, um, there's this mystery that's happening in the midst of it, and Donis is like, she's not only is she going to be a doctor, she was like a star hockey player in high school, which is huge in the UP,
Yes.
and wow, it's just the book that like I'm gonna be sad when it's over. And it's about 500 pages, and that like it's not quite a Brandon Sanderson or anything, but to me like that gives me pause. Like I often pick my books based on what can I read in a week, just because to me I'm a more is better kind of guy. So but this one is really just really wonderful. So I'm
And
really
it
enjoying that.
is in our teen area, but I have read this one. I do
Yeah.
read the occasional teen, and I loved it too. It really shocked me to read about because the author grew up in
Yes.
a Native American community. The author is Native American, so she's writing about her experiences, and I didn't know. You know what I mean? That's not really a good excuse anymore, but I didn't know. It never occurred to me that here in Michigan, in the UP, there would be someone hassling at the Canadian border, Native Americans going through, but not hassling white kids going through.
Right.
That they would be pulled over more, that there would be things happening. I had no idea that
Yeah.
that was happening. I mean, and I feel awful that I didn't know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a really neat identity piece to the story because Donis is she has a white mom and a
Mhm.
Native American father, and she's trying to like come to terms with all of that too, where like she feels like I am fully Native, but also like I'm not a part, like an enrolled part of this tribe because there was some scandal. So like there's just like so many layers. I think and this is the author's debut novel. In
I
her
think
bio,
she's young.
yeah, she's a storyteller,
Mhm.
like in her community, and was um, the former director of the Office of Indian Education at the U.S. Department of Education. Has some really neat experience, but like the way this book reads, like um, it doesn't seem like a debut. It seems like a well practiced author. But it's Native American Heritage Month also, so
Timely.
yeah, very
And
timely.
Jason, I'm going to interrupt you a hot second because Michelle Hoffman just gave us a comment. It'd be wonderful if the titles of the book you were talking about would be listed in the comment section or somehow on the screen. I usually come
Oh,
in during the middle of when
yeah,
someone is talking.
sure.
And what a great idea now that I'm almost done with what we're reading.
Right, right. Well, I'll hold this up again just for this one. We did.
Yes.
So,
So
yeah,
I'm
but
going to type in The Firekeeper's
What
Daughter.
a pretty cover, by the way. I've
yeah,
seen that
I
book a
love
dozen
that.
times. It's such a beautiful cover.
yeah. You can't really tell in the video, but it's embossed and it has spot UV. Sorry, I make board games too, so like that's a very like it's this glossy print on top of flat print, and it's bumpy and textured, and it's
Yes.
so gorgeous. It even looks better with the KDL like plastic wrapping around it, like to keep it pristine. I,
Nice.
I had an express book that was due today, so I actually and I was about 100 pages from the end, so I went out and bought my own copy so I could bring my express book back because I wanted like my whole family to like read this book. So
Neat.
I'm gonna pass my copy around when I'm done.
And so I had the same reaction. And if you're a regular viewer of what we're reading, you have heard me talk about this book
Mm,
because I brought it up when I first read it. I can't remember how long ago that was, and probably you guys didn't see that, but it really touched me. And I'm not really touched by teens, and such a great story, and so
yeah,
many things to learn about the culture that is literally right next door, and it's such a great way to read it. I would definitely recommend this to young people. There are drugs in it.
that's true. Yep. Yep.
So if you're concerned about that as a parent, you might want to be cognizant of that. I don't remember if there was anything graphic. I know there's talk of mature
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. Nothing specific so
Characters,
far. Like I said, I'm close to the end, but um, I mean, it's a college student, so a a lot of the things that occur around that time of life are alluded to. There is violence and drugs, but yeah, it's not too explicit sexually.
Excellent. I want to thank you both again for coming. You guys were both fabulous, and I have no worries about the future of libraries because
Yay.
the
Thanks.
future looks great. So look for Jason coming soon at the Wyoming branch, and come see Matt and I at the Amy Van Andel branch. And we only have 2 more What We're Readings to go. So come back next Tuesday at 6:30 and check us out. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.